You have suggested that this surcharge could be hiked or potentially that electricity exports to the U.S. could be cut off entirely if there is escalation from this administration. What escalation would precipitate that response from you?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me on, Kaylee and Joe. I appreciate the opportunity. I start off with every interview saying we love Americans. We love the U.S. Canadians love Americans. I do. Spent 20 years of my life in Chicago and New Jersey. In saying this, this is one person. It's not the American people. It's not even Republicans that I've talked to, governors or senators or congresswomen or men. Is one person. That's President Trump. Has created this chaos, not just here in Canada and the U.S. and Mexico, but around the world right now. You know, he ran on a mandate to lower inflation, create more jobs, and it's done the total opposite. Inflation's going up. Assembly plants will close if he continues on with these tariffs in the auto sector. People will lose their jobs. Manufacturing will go down, and people will have less money in their pockets. I believe in an AMCAN fortress. Let's create an American-Canadian fortress and have the strongest, wealthiest, most prosperous two countries in the entire world. That's what I believe in.
Have you talked about your own retaliation with incoming Prime Minister Carney? Are you both on the same page on this?
I just got off the phone with him a minute ago, and Prime Minister-elect Carney, extremely bright individual when it comes to finances and other areas of business. I'm going to be sitting down with him this week and having a conversation. But he's right in line with what I believe in. Across the country, patriotism is running wild like I've never seen before. And again, it's not against the American people. It's one person. I call it the self-inflicted potential recession. There's one person that will put us in a recession, and that's President Trump.
So you've spoken with the incoming prime minister. Have you had a chance to speak with the president or anyone in this administration since putting into place this surcharge today?
No, I haven't. I spoke to Secretary Lutnick, another bright individual when it comes to finances. And I agree or disagree with President Trump. He's an extremely bright business person. If they can't see this, when the market speaks, I always say when the market speaks, you have to listen. The market is speaking. CEOs are speaking. People are speaking out. Why is he doing this to his largest customer in the world, Canada? No one buys more products off the U.S. than Canada does, including autos, 400% more than Mexico, 200% more than anywhere in the world. And we buy as many cars as we ship down there. And the ones we ship down there are 50% American-made parts. You can't, I always say that you can't unscramble an egg that's been around since the 1960s, the auto pack. We have to make a larger omelet. That's what we need to do.
Well, you're export tariffing electricity here. You've called for possibly export tariffing crude. I wonder, what is your message to Premier Smith of Alberta, who is staunchly opposed to that idea?
Well, that's strictly up to Premier Smith. I have no jurisdiction in Alberta. That will be up to Premier Smith. But Americans have to remember, President Trump, I should say, President Trump should remember that Alberta ships 4.3 million barrels a day down to the U.S. And there's nothing more than I'd want to do is send more energy, more critical minerals, rather than raise tariffs. I don't believe in protectionism with your two closest friends and allies in the entire world. As we're going back and forth at each other, China's ramping up every single day in the critical minerals, and they've cut the U.S. off for any critical minerals for their military. We have it. Ontario has more critical minerals than anywhere in the world. And who do I want to give it to? I want to give it to our closest friends and allies, the U.S.
Well, when we're considering what commodities Ontario does have, you've threatened to cut off the supply of nickel from mines in Ontario. Is that a real threat? And again, what would make you act on that? What action from the Trump administration would see that response?
Well, 50% of the high-grade nickel, and I emphasize high-grade nickel in the U.S. for their military and their aerospace and manufacturing, comes from Ontario. Again, Kaylee, I want to send more nickel, more high-grade nickel, more lithium, more cobalt. We have 33 of the most critical minerals that the whole world wants. I don't want to give them to anyone. I want to give them to our closest friend and allies. That's what I want to do. I want to create that damn can fortress.
This is interesting, and I wonder, Premier, what your thoughts are about President Trump's motivations. What's his obsession, if I can use that word, with Canada? Clearly, we've established that much more fentanyl by many thousands of pounds a year is going through Mexico. Have you heard that message from this White House, what it is that Canada could do to bring these tariffs down?
Well, your guess is as good as mine, Joe, because when the president said tighten up the border, we acted immediately to tighten up the border. I had the DEA in my office, I had the U.S. Border Patrol and Canadian Border Patrol, federal and state police, and we're doing that. We put over 10,000 personnel along our border, but it works both ways. I hate drugs. I can't stand 1 gram of fentanyl coming in, but where's the precursors coming from? From China. They gave me a report, our provincial police, equal to our state police, that hundreds of kilos of cocaine are coming from the southern border that were caught in the last couple of weeks. Illegal guns, illegals, opioids, fentanyl, everything. We have a shared border, and I know our Canadian and American Border Patrol folks work together. Our police work together. So we're going to do everything we can to stop the flow of drugs and illegals and guns coming back and forth across the border. But it has dropped drastically here in Canada.
Well, President Trump contends it's not just an issue with what's flowing over the border. This is also about making sure trade between the U.S. and Canada is more fair, hence the threat of reciprocal tariffs against things like lumber and dairy. Premier, should Canada consider lowering rates charged there so that it doesn't require a reciprocal tariff?
Well, Kaylee, I'll tell you the facts. You take the oil off the balance sheet because the U.S. needs it. The U.S. has a $56 billion surplus on manufacturing and services with Canada. So they have a surplus of $56 billion. I have no problem with that. That's fine. Let's grow the pie. As I say, grow the omelet, make it larger. As as our foes, be it China, is declaring an economic war. They've been doing that, by the way, quietly for the last 10 years while everyone's been sleeping. And they're sitting back laughing at the 2 greatest allies, duking it up back and forth. It's unacceptable. Let's unite. We're stronger together. United we stand, divided we fall. We need to stand united together.